Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are breaking down the 2026 Miami Grand Prix, and wow, what a race. If you've been following the new season, you already know how crucial this weekend was. It was basically a massive technical and strategic pressure test for the entire grid. We're going to dive deep into the shifting regulations, the data, and exactly how this absolute thriller unfolded from start to finish. Let's get into it.
Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. First, Miami qualifying and the sprint. 2, lights out and turn 1. 3, race strategy and drama. 4, the checkered flag. And finally, number 5, the 2026 championship standings.
Section 1, Miami qualifying and sprint. Okay, so context is everything here. Because of the unfortunate race cancellations over in the Middle East, Miami was actually bumped up to become round 4. This meant that after a long 5-week break, teams finally got to unleash their new 2026 packages. McLaren brought some heavy upgrades, and man, it paid off in the sprint. Lando Norris managed to snap Mercedes' qualifying dominance to grab the sprint pole, and then he converted that into a win, leading a massive 1-2 finish with Oscar Piastri. But when it came to the feature race, Mercedes phenom Kimi Antonelli struck back with a total vengeance, snatching pole position and pushing Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc into second and third.
You really have to wrap your head around this qualifying time. 1 minute, 27.798 seconds. That was Kimi Antonelli's pole lap, and it was just blazing fast. An absolute statement performance. It locked in his 3rd consecutive pole of the new season and proved that even with McLaren's sprint success, that Mercedes is still terrifyingly quick over a single lap.
Section 2, lights out and turn 1. So, we have Antonelli, Verstappen, and Leclerc lined up at the very front. The tension was literally palpable. The second those 5 red lights went out, a completely chaotic 3-way battle erupted. Picture this, as they go roaring down into turn 1, which, by the way, is one of the heaviest braking zones on this entire street circuit. They were just totally bunched together. Antonelli and Verstappen both went way too deep under braking. You could practically see the smoke billowing off their front tires as they locked up, desperately fighting for that crucial apex. The immediate consequence of all that chaos, a massive 360 spin. Right in the middle of that frantic heavy braking, Max Verstappen's Red Bull actually made contact with Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. The impact sent Verstappen spinning a full 360 degrees. Now, he miraculously kept the car running, but he plummeted straight down the order, which completely shifted the entire dynamic of the race in just a matter of seconds.
Section 3, race strategy and drama.
With Verstappen suddenly pushed all the way to the back, the race settled into a completely different rhythm. To really grasp what happened next, we have to talk about the new 2026 MGUK regulations. Basically, the rules this year mandate that the system's electric power has to make up roughly 50% of the car's total output. This turns heavy braking zones, like turns 1, 11, and 17, into absolute battlegrounds for harvesting battery energy. It's like a giant puzzle. If a team can't efficiently harvest and then deploy that energy, they're sitting ducks to the closing speed of the cars right behind them.
And you can clearly see the divide between the top teams here. Mercedes absolutely mastered this MGUK energy harvesting. They flawlessly controlled their deployment pace, which kept Antonelli safely in the lead. Ferrari, on the other hand, total nightmare. Their new package was plagued by severe rear tire overheating and degradation. Plus, the notoriously smooth asphalt in Miami just made the issue so much worse, completely crippling their race pace and really boxing in their strategic options.
But, Ferrari wasn't the only team stressing over strategy. Just listen to this frantic team radio from Lando Norris. My God, why didn't we pit first? We should have boxed first. I mean, that really hits the nail on the head when it comes to the extreme pressure of the undercut in modern F1. Norris was aggressively hunting down Antonelli, and he was incredibly frustrated that McLaren played it just a little too safe. That slight hesitation cost him track position and potentially the win. It just goes to show how razor-thin the margins are on the pit wall these days.
Section 4, the checkered flag.
As the race pushed into its final stages, it morphed into a pure test of endurance, tire management, and raw speed. Here's how it all played out. We had that massive turn 1 chaos on lap 1. Then, completely fueled by his pit stop frustration, Norris put his head down on lap 35 and set a blistering fastest lap of 131.869, just relentlessly chasing the leader. But Antonelli's defense? Unbreakable. By lap 57, Antonelli held firm and crossed the finish line, successfully fending off Norris right to the very end.
And the relief from the cockpit was undeniable. Catch this quote from Antonelli's team radio right after crossing the line. "Whew, man, what a race!
What a race, man! Whew. Oh my God. You can just hear the pure, unfiltered joy. With this victory, Kimi Antonelli literally made history, becoming the very first driver to convert their first 3 poles into 3 consecutive wins. Absolutely monumental stuff for the young driver.
Looking at the final results, Antonelli obviously takes the win, but check out the gap to Lando Norris in second. It's just over 3 seconds. And with Oscar Piastri rounding out the podium in third, McLaren locked in a highly encouraging double podium finish. They are really finding their footing in this new season and are breathing right down Mercedes' neck.
Section 5. 2026 Championship Standings.
So, what does this all mean for the big picture? Well, the landscape of the season is really starting to lock in. Let's break down the driver's standings first. Kimi Antonelli is sitting on a commanding lead at exactly 100 points, building a solid 20-point cushion over his teammate George Russell. Charles Leclerc is hanging on to third with 63 points, but with Lando Norris surging right behind him at 57 points after a huge weekend, that battle for third is getting incredibly tight.
Over in the Constructors' battle, Mercedes is chilling comfortably at the top with 180 points. But the real story is what's happening just below them. Ferrari sits in second with 110 points, but McLaren's phenomenal weekend in Miami has allowed them to rapidly close the gap. They're sitting just 16 points behind Ferrari now, at 94. Meanwhile, Red Bull is currently languishing down in fourth with only 30 points after a completely compromised weekend for Verstappen.
Which leaves us with this final thought. With McLaren's upgrades clearly working and rapidly closing the gap, and Ferrari absolutely desperate to solve their severe tire degradation issues before the next race, can anyone actually stop Kimi Antonelli's 2026 dominance? It's a fascinating question, and I literally cannot wait to see how it unfolds at the next Grand Prix. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the grid.